Whether you're an extempor or an ex-extempor, the act and skill of extemporaneous speaking is incredibly important for strategy, persuasion, and winning a judge's ballot. Today, I'm planning on giving you plenty of essential tips that can instantly make you a better extempor, no matter what your skill level is. The first minute and a half of your speech is your ticket to the one. Human beings, including your judges, have super short attention spans because of things like social media. So you want to make sure that you're actively engaging them. In this video, we're going to talk about first the introduction to the introduction and the basic structure you'll need. Then we're going to talk about tips and tricks and what you should do. And finally, some drills to practice, practice, practice. There are 7 parts to the Extemp intro, and here's a guide to all of them. The AGD, or the attention-getting device, is basically the hook to your entire speech. The point of this is you want to grab the judge's attention, especially if you're a later speaker in the round. In order to do this well, a lot of common anecdotes that people use could be a narrative from a real person that is dealing with a crisis. So, for instance, The Economist is a great news source to grab from because they always talk about real people involved. And if it's a lighter topic, maybe something to deal with economics, you can always use a joke. An important thing to know about AGDs is that you have to do them right. Really critically think about the way that you're phrasing every sentence. If it's a joke, use the rule of threes and make sure that you punch up and laugh at a politician, but don't laugh at the people that are actually impacted by the crisis. Then you have the link, which is exactly what it sounds like. It links your AGD to your background. The reason why this is important is because it makes your AGD directly credible and gives you more credibility as a speaker. So let's say I'm a novice extempor who I did this once in a round. I go in and I talk about me and my mom having a conversation, and that's directly related to this political crisis. That doesn't give me a lot of credibility as a speaker. So you want to use the 1 to 2 sentences within your link to emphasize the fact that you know what you're talking about. You can be interesting, but you also have some sources to back it up in the background. The background is the part of the speech where you finally start to cite sources. So in an XM speech, there's generally 7 to 8 sources, and 2 of them will occur in the background. The background is the longest part of your introduction for good reason. If there's terms in the question that you and the judge might not reasonably know, for instance, Trump's new tariff policies, then you should define those words. Every single word in the phrasing of a question matters, whether it's asking should or how can X actor do something. So make sure you define it. Great things to cite would be recent news articles from credible sources. So while citing Harvard might sound like a really good idea, make sure it's a credible research report, not just something a random freshman wrote last week. In addition, you want to make sure to use the background as the time you get to leverage how smart you sound, but you also want to make it understandable to the judge. Remember, a lot of times at local and even the prelims of national tournaments, judges are parents, so they want to know sources that they actually understand. Citing something like Fox or CNN might not go too well with a judge who's super politically biased. So keep the background neutral, but tailor it to the question and the answer that you're about to deliver. The statement of significance, or the SOS, is why your speech matters. In Extemp, sometimes we get lost in the sauce of all these fancy sources and complicated questions, but at the end of the day, we are answering questions that real politicians, real economists, real world leaders have to answer themselves, and we're just teenagers doing it in 30 minutes. The statement of significance is to provide that levity, that humanity to your speech. So let's say, for instance, you're talking about a food crisis in a country or something that's just happened. There's a reason why the question writer wrote that question. There's a reason why you picked it. And when you're researching, maybe it comes from your own experience, or maybe it comes from the experience of the people that you're reading about. But you have to make sure that you are directly relating it to them. So, for instance, the word considering is generally considered to be the signpost. So you say, when considering the people that this question directly impacts, the X population of these people, the fact that this could set a new precedence for policy across the world. That's why we ask the question. The statement of the significance is why your speech matters, so make sure it does. Don't make the statement of significance into something that's a joke. Really slow your pace down, take the time to let it sit, because your judge is going to care, and you should too. The last 3 parts of the intro are the question, answer, and preview. The question is the easiest part of the intro, thankfully. You literally just restate the question that was written on your slip of paper, verbatim, exactly what you told the judge and exactly what it says. Now, the preview and the answer are some things novice extempers can get mixed up. Think of it like an English essay. Your preview is your thesis, but your points are your preview. So when we ask the question, why is the Argument Institute the best? The answer is because they provide amazing resources. Not that I'm biased. And it's for three key reasons. First, because of videos. Second, because of private coaching. And third, because of its novel debate resources. All of these are distinct answers that support the thesis of why the Argument Institute is awesome, but it also directly answers the question. So when you say the question, make sure it's slow and enunciated. Then when you get into your preview, that's what your judge is going to write down. Especially when you get to saying what the actual points of your speech are, make sure that the way you phrase them is exactly the same to how you're planning to say them later in your speech, because these are the words that the judges are going to write down and look for when they're looking for the rest of your content. This begins the rest of your extemp speech, and hopefully the first minute and a half to 2 minutes that you've taken to do it are awesome, because I'm sure they are. Here are 3 tips and tricks to help you master the introduction. First, sounds really counterintuitive, but you should prep the introduction last during your extemp prep time. The reason for this is because the introduction structure is always the same. That's why this video is so helpful. And the reason why you're going to take less prep time on the introduction is because you will already have prepped out the entire content of the speech, which means you know your strategy best. So incorporating it into the background and the AGD will take less time on average. Second, be mindful of your panel. Whether you're from a super conservative or super liberal area, maybe you know one of your judges doesn't like you talking about a certain political topic, make sure that you don't shoot yourself in the foot by making a Trump joke to a conservative judge and getting the 6. Just know that whether it's a parent or an experienced coach, every single person has their biases. If you want to ensure that you're winning in a round, make sure you pander or make sure you're neutral to those biases to help make sure that your rank is the accurate one you're getting, not because of a throwaway comment that you made. Finally, stay concise. The introduction is an introduction to your speech. If you get the 5 while you are in the introduction, girl, you gotta move on. On average, introductions are normally going to be 130 to 145, but 2 minutes is your hard limit. Do not go past it. Otherwise, you won't have time to talk about the content that you just introduced. Now, here are some drills that will help you perfect your introduction. The next drill I want to talk about is hook, line, and sinker, which is my personal favorite of the 3. Basically, you go to any news site, my personal favorite is The Economist for this drill, and look at the headlines. Now, for instance, with The Economist, the headlines are already a little bit satirical or poking fun at the content of the article, and you want to spend around 1 to 2 minutes just prepping out only the AGD and the link. So what would you say in those 20 seconds to grab the judge's attention? That's really important, and it ensures that your judge stays paying attention while you're prepping loads of different topics. Finally, only the intro. So instead of doing a quick one and done, which is a drill where you do the intro and the first point, take around 5 minutes to just only prep the introduction. You'll find that by the time you get through around 5 of these new introductions, you'll have a huge variety of topics to draw from, but also you'll be so much better at delivering the intro. Thank you guys so much for watching our video. If you'd like more resources to help you improve at speech and debate, visit theargumentinstitute.org or follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. We'll catch you guys in round.